So I want to talk about how you healed and opened your heart to love again after your divorce. I feel that is the hardest thing in like witnessing myself, like in relationship now, I'm like, it's scary, because you're like, are those red flags? Are they not?
Yes.
So what was that process like for you?
Okay, so and I would say love, like mind-blowing love, because that only happened once. What was I in before? So this relates to the 5 stages of the heart. And the Vedas and Swami Sri Yukteswar says we all go through these stages. So the first stage is the dark heart. And this is where we're in confusion, fear, our heart and our brains aren't talking. So maybe we're making choices in our relationships out of fear or abandonment issues, which was definitely part of my trauma, or safety issues. And then the next stage is the propelled heart. So this is we're propelled into action to feel good about ourselves. So we're trying to get those achievements. We might pick a partner because it fits in or it looks good, or, it's neat and tidy. It fits into our life plan. The ego wants us to be married and have a house and 2 kids by the time we're 30 or whatever it is. And then there's the steady heart.
Right. So we got the dark heart, which is kind of like a dark night of the soul, would you say?
That's it. And we can kind of experience all of these at certain times, but we tend to be in one stage more at a time. So then the third stage is the steady heart. And this is we start to realize we are the anchor for ourselves. And there's this place inside of us that is the anchor, no matter what big emotions we experience or what life experiences we experience. And then the fourth stage is the devotional heart. And this is where we become more devoted to love, unconditional love, peace, connection, more than external goals. It doesn't mean that we don't want them. And in fact, as we become more coherent and connected, we tend to create what we want in the world far easier. And then the fifth stage is the clear heart. It means our heart becomes one with the universal heart. This is the true connection, no separation between us and our brothers and sisters, full harmony. So dark, propelled, steady, devoted, clear. And the reason this relates to your question is because looking back, I spent most of my life in the propelled heart. I think most of society is in the propelled heart with a lot of dark heart, right? A lot of fear, a lot of confusion. So at the time when I went through my breakup, the partner I chose was fitting in with my life at the time. He was a really big Hollywood agent. We met through a very big client that I had. We went to premieres together. We seemed to know all the Hollywood people. We went to all these parties. We lived this life. I lived in this cushy house with him. It was like, oh yeah, this feels really great.
You were at the age that you felt like, okay, this is when I get married.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I never
never had that, okay.
I never had that, but it was more like, I don't know, it just kind of like fit in.
Okay.
And then what happened was a big life bomb, I would call it, where my mom passed away really suddenly. And we found out she had cancer on Valentine's Day. And then she passed within 6 weeks. Like, she seemed like the healthiest person. So this was like, holy crap, anything can happen at any time. So it kind of put me in this, dark heart phase where I felt like I couldn't trust life. And I just felt really angry, the stages of grief. And then Sahara, then I woke, I started looking around. And I was like, this is not it. I'm getting goosebumps when I think about it. And at the time, we were engaged. So we weren't actually married, but we had a child together. My older son, who was, is and was the love of my life. He wasn't even a year old. So I just lost my mom. I was a new mom. And then I was like, life is right here. Like, what do I really want? How do I want to feel? And I didn't know everything, but I knew that I wanted a closeness, a real love, real connection. So I remember it was New Year. I looked up at the full moon and I looked at my partner and I was like, I'm leaving. And it was just this clarity that came in, right? And it was just like that. So I moved out.
So you didn't talk to any friend, you just knew and trusted it?
No, this is the thing. This is the ego. I was kind of embarrassed, I think, to like this facade of like this, everyone's like, you have this amazing life and you live in this amazing house in Venice and everything's beautiful and you have this beautiful child together. We went on these fancy trips. So I didn't talk to anybody, actually. It was kind of just in me, but there was a storm brewing. And after my mom passed away, it was like, boom, like it was already cracking. And so then I decided to move out and I talked to this monk at the Self-Realization Fellowship, which is Yogananda's meditation center, where I meditate and I practice Kriya Yoga, as I mentioned. And he said, treat your home like an ashram for 5 months. meaning just focus on yourself, go deep. So this is where I meditated a lot and I read scriptures. I went back to the Bhagavad Gita. I read the Bible. I read, Eckhart Tolle. Like I was going into all my Yogananda books and I didn't go out that much. I saw some friends. I go to dinner a little bit, but mostly I was home. And by the way, my dad was living with us. I was like, what is going on in my life?
And you had a newborn, a baby.
I had a baby.
Yeah.
That was something of a new mom.
Yeah.
By the way, my mom's from the Philippines where divorce is illegal. Mm-hmm. So this was like, scared to tell that part of the family. Like, I just felt like such a loser. I felt like I didn't deserve love. I put so many stories around this title of being a single mom, especially. And then like break up, alone. I was like, who's gonna want me? Now I have a kid by myself. Like just all this stuff. It felt so heavy. It was my rock bottom. But after 5 months, I started to feel this different energy. And so what I would say here, and as far as the stages, because I didn't have the language then, I started to find my steady heart. I started to find myself. So when we talk about the heart, like you said, it's not just like, oh, this feels good. There's a really practical nature to it. The heart is another brain. In children, in babies, the heart forms. You see the heartbeat on the monitor before the brain forms. So there's this different type of intelligence that is intuitive. It creates emotional intelligence. It creates higher health. It steadies us in ourself. And again, we can get more into the science in a moment. But I started to feel this anchor in myself. And one thing I'll say, and we'll also get into this, there's a field that's created by your heart. It's 100 times stronger than the brain, and it can be measured in science by magnetometers. So everything is light and energy. So when you become steady, you create a more coherent field. So your heart, brain, and nervous system are lined up. But it means you perceive life differently. And guess what? People perceive you differently. So if you're not steady yet, there's chaos in the field. And even if you don't realize it, you attract chaotic people, chaotic situations, even though consciously you're like, I want this kind of person, when your energy doesn't lie. So I realized looking back why I was in relationships and situations I was in, because I wasn't studying myself. So then I started to steady myself, go into this work. And then guess what? Randomly, Sahara, someone who came on my podcast, invited me to this random dinner party in Venice. I hardly knew this person. It was like, oh, a group of friends are getting together. So I was like, something in my heart said, yes, go to this party. Because intuition, by the way, can be trained and it can be turned on the more clear we are in these neural pathways. So it becomes easier to make those right decisions, to feel instead of with the ego. So I said, okay, I'll go to this dinner party. So I went, and guess what? I met hubby. I met John, my husband. So because I said to myself, I'm going to just live my life.
And did you know instantly? What was that like?
Okay, 15 minutes, girl. I just was like, this is weird, because usually I would never be attracted to this guy. He was like full tattoo man, and he had some, I would say, questionable tattoos, including one with like a naked woman that would like usually be like, is this guy a player? Gold grill in his teeth, talking about smoking meat, whereas I'm plant-based, like completely the opposite. But there was this heart resonance, right? There was this clarity in my field. Now I can have this language to talk about, and there's science to this, right? And so I felt him. And here's a guy, Sahara, who said, I will never get married. He told all his friends.
He's never been married.
He'd never been married. He went in for a vasectomy, said, I will never have kids. Was one of those guys, very happy being a bachelor.
How old was he?
He was, at the time when we met, we 37. Okay. So he was like, in 15 minutes, he said he knew I was going to be his wife. So I was like, well, I got to leave the party. I was 2 a.m. I said, I do a beach walk every morning. This is when I was living around here. I do a beach walk at 7 a.m. And he's like, well, I'll come. And I was like, really? Because this is like 5 hours. So he said, he shows up. We go on this 2-hour beach walk. Amazing conversation. At the end, I was like, well, I don't usually ask guys out, but I have this speaking thing for Levi's tonight, who I had a partnership with. I said, do you want to come? So he came with me to the Levi's event. So we hung out 3 times in 24 hours, took Sunday off. Monday, we went to dinner, and he told me he loved me.